Everyone to Bet What Happens Live. We are at halftime. Pretty wild game. 30 points total so far. Las Vegas currently leads by 10. But if we look at the live markets here, they only have a 55% win probability. And that's, of course, because the Chiefs are favored. They're at home, all of this stuff. So it's creating a really interesting situation here. So if we look at my screen here, we can see things are supposed to be a little bit faster with the splits that we have. These teams tend to play a little bit faster in the second half. The Chiefs are neutral pace when trailing by a lot, and Las Vegas plays actually faster than average when leading by more than a possession. So we're kind of in this weird situation where the pace splits say we're going to play faster, but at the same time, the total plays aren't really going up. Normally, we expect around 5 extra plays in the second half. And I think that's because we're in a very specific situation where even though the Raiders are more likely to win and they're leading by 10, there's still a very solid chance that the Chiefs actually win. And if the Chiefs do win, they're leading late in the game, they're going to rush more. So that's why we are seeing both teams with a little bit lower pass percentage than their pre-game expectation. Very weird situation, very unique. And I think it could present us with some betting opportunities. So let's take a look at the live player props. Patrick Mahomes, he's 12 for 20 for 98 yards passing. That means our live projection for him is 236 yards passing. Now, they will start with the ball, so a little bit more than that. So if I go to passing props here, and I'm looking over at FanDuel for the moment, what we see 276 and a half for Patrick Mahomes. And for Derek Carr, we see 237 and a half. So this is really, really interesting because rest of game, look at this. We have both of them for almost 138 yards passing each. And that's because our pregame projections, which are powered by Sean Kerner, director of predictive analytics and most accurate ranker for the last 3 years, has their pregame passing projection very close. So we shouldn't expect their in-game projection to be too far off if we're getting into a situation where it should be around a 50-50 on who could win this. So it makes sense that, given the fact that Derek Carr is 32 yards ahead of Patrick Mahomes, and it's likely that I shouldn't say likely, but there's a solid chance the Chiefs actually take the lead, that this projection is too high for Patrick Mahomes. Now, they are starting with the ball, and the Raiders are not starting with the ball, but I don't think that is going to change a ton. So what I really want to do here is I do want to take the under on Patrick Mahomes passing yards. That is going to be my first bet. And let me just double check to see if there's a better line out there. So that was on FanDuel. Let me check on DraftKings if we have any better lines here. So let's go to passing props, passing yardage. We got 237 and a half and 276 and a half. So I am going to take Mahomes under on the passing yards. We've seen the Raiders really so far shut down Kansas City. And if you watch Green Dot Daily earlier today, you'll know the Raiders defensive coordinator was the defensive coordinator for the Giants last year when they went into Monday Night Football and held the Chiefs to only 20 points. Well, 10 points in the first half for the Chiefs. That means maybe they're only on pace for 20 points here as well. So it could be a struggle still for Kansas City. So we are going to go with Mahomes under. What I'm going to recommend with Las Vegas is I do think I want to take Derek Carr's over, but not right now. If Kansas City puts some points on the board, I want to take Derek Carr's over on his passing yards. Whatever that live over ends up being, you can see we're projecting nearly a 30-yard gap here. That is, dependent on what happens with Kansas City's first possession here. So after Kansas City's first possession, if they put some points on the board, we will be taking Derek Carr's over on his passing yards. So that is definitely something to pay attention to. So while we have it here on passing yards, let's look at receiving yard props. because I do think we're going to find some interesting situations. So if we're on Patrick Mahomes under, let's start with the Kansas City receivers and let's see what their receiving yards props are. So coming down here, we have Juju for 28.5. We have Valdez Scantling, 65.5. We have Hardman for 15.5. And we have Travis Kelce, live prop of 52.5. So we're showing Travis Kelce's under and the under for these receivers as well. Aside from Hardman showing value. So the biggest value on the under is Travis Kelce. Very interesting. They're going to have to get him more involved. Before I commit to a bet there, I want to check out as well the Raiders because we know we're leaning over on Derek Carr. But if there's an absolute smash over, I definitely want to make that a bet as well. Oh, let me also do the Chiefs running backs here. So we've got Clyde Edwards-Helaire at 14.5 and Jerick McKinnon at 28.5. And we are showing some solid value on Jerick McKinnon's under. It does seem he got a lot of that garbage time work. And if the Chiefs are going to, I guess, make the game closer and eventually lead in the second half, I think it makes sense that Jerick McKinnon would hit the under here. Now, it is possible we need to revise maybe the pregame projections if we think Jerick McKinnon is going to get more of the workload than Isaiah Pacheco. But what I did notice is Pacheco got some work there before the garbage time work with Jerick McKinnon. So this is a really interesting spot where if the Chiefs are going to lead, I like McKinnon definitely to hit this under. But if they don't, then I like him to hit the over or at least, come close to his projection here. So this is a really dicey spot, but I'm going to roll with it because you know what? I trust the model. I'm going to say Jerick McKinnon goes under his 28.5 receiving yards. Right now he's at 19. I'm going to say he goes under 28.5 receiving yards. That is going to be my second bet for this halftime show. So we're getting bold here. We're already going with two unders. We've got the Patrick Mahomes under on his passing yards, and we're going Jerick McKinnon under as well. And remember, we're holding off on Derek Carr's over, but let's check the Las Vegas Raiders receivers. All right, Devontae Adams. I am looking at 104.5 at halftime. We've got Mac Hollins, 11.5. He had that unfortunate drop there. Hunter Renfrow, 23.5. We've got Darren Waller, of course, being out makes it interesting on this distribution of the receivers. We did update our pregame projections for if Waller was out, how would that affect things? So we do think these will be pretty accurate. Josh Jacobs, we're looking at 28.5 live yards as well. And just flipping through here to see if there's any other. We got Brandon Bolden at 24.5. So as we expect, we probably should show some value on these overs. Josh Jacobs, Brandon Bolden, which definitely would come into play if Vegas starts trailing. Additionally, we have some value on the overs here. We got a lot of value on these overs, and that's because we're projecting Derek Carr to throw for more yards. So right now, the biggest over we're showing is Mac Hollins. Not so sure I want to go there. This is kind of the same situation with Derek Carr, where if the Chiefs score, then I want to bet these overs. So if the Chiefs score on this first possession, I want to bet Mac Hollins over, and I want to bet Derek Carr's over. So Mac Hollins over whatever his live receiving prop is, and Derek Carr over what his live passing yards prop is. I want to bet those overs if the Chiefs score on their first possession. Finally, real quick, let's take a look at some rushing props because we always want to do that. 117.5 for Josh Jacobs, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 17.5, and that's all I'm seeing for rushing props. We are showing value on the over for Josh Jacobs there as well, and we're showing value on the over for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So very interesting. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire right now has only 2 yards rushing. So it's going to put them really close. There could be some value over. And let's see. Josh Jacobs, because the Raiders aren't going to start with the ball here, I want to wait and see what happens here. So not going to take the over there. So I think we're okay on these. I really don't want to bet this Clyde Edwards-Helaire over because I'm seeing bigger value elsewhere. So I think in this situation, we've got some interesting stuff going on here. And once again, just to kind of recap, both of these teams are likely to run a little bit more than expected, but the Las Vegas Raiders, they do play up tempo, and there's a chance that they fall behind just because the Chiefs are favored, which is why we're showing more value on the over for Derek Carr. The live line is 237.5, and we're projecting Derek Carr for 268. Got a question here. Just curious, does your model take into account current score, or is this based on pregame projections? It 100% takes into account current score. So we can see Las Vegas is currently ahead by 10. Their live win probability based off the live markets is 55%. There's 1,800 seconds remaining in the game, right? I could toggle all these things and we could see how they change. If the Raiders were to have maybe a 70% win probability, we'd see how all these things change, or if they were to go ahead by more. So this is taking the pregame projections and adjusting them based off the current game's situation. So anyway, coming up on the end of halftime here. So once again, the recap, we're going with Derek Carr. With Patrick Mahomes under 276.5 receiving yards. We're going under Jerick McKinnon, 28.5 receiving yards. And we're paying attention to those Las Vegas Raiders overs. Derek Carr's passing yard over if the Chiefs score. And we're looking at the over for Mac Hollins receiving yards as well if the Chiefs score on their first possession coming out of halftime. That's going to do it for this Bet What Happens Live. Enjoy the rest of the game, everybody. We'll see you on Thursday.